Welcome to another edition of the SprintCarUnlimited.com Deep Dive presented by EnTrust IT Solutions. Joining us on this week's show is FloSports General Manager of Motorsports, Michael Rigsby. Before we get to Michael, don't forget to check out EnTrust IT Solutions. EnTrust is a full-service technology company serving small and mid-sized businesses in New York, Pennsylvania, and surrounding areas. The staff at EnTrust takes a personalized approach to technology. See why customers are choosing EnTrust IT Solutions as their technology partner by scheduling a free consultation at www.entrust-msp.com or calling 717-292-8868. Now on to Michael Rigsby. Michael, thank you very much for doing the deep dive. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, Jeremy. Thanks for having me on. I'm glad we can coordinate it.
Yeah, no, so am I, especially since it's Thursday and it runs tonight. But
perfect.
You were my first choice. You weren't like an afterthought choice.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. So I was like option C.
No, you were option A this week. You were option A.
Good.
So one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because I have a background in journalism as far as a newspaper, and there just isn't a lot of that in this sport as far as dirt track racing. And you kind of have that same background. And I think people just know you as the dirt on dirt guy or the flow guy, and there's a lot more to it. So I'm going to jump in and just, first off, when were you first exposed to racing, especially dirt track racing?
Yeah, so I'm a Central Illinois kid, right? So for me, I grew up, Colfax, Illinois is my hometown, and my hometown sits as the crow flies 12, 13 miles from Fairbury Speedway. So when you grow up that close to Fairbury and only 25 to 30 miles from Farmer City, it's in your blood. And my grandfather actually raced a midget. And that's the crazy thing is what most people know is like my family racing history is open wheel stuff. I'm the guy that started the late model website. So because Fairbury sort of transitioned to Fender stuff and late model stuff later in its career, but early on, Fairbury Speedway was an open wheel track. So you grow up that close to Fairbury. You have a grandfather who competes, and by the time I was sort of growing up, he was out of it, but he still loved racing so much. So that's it. You know, I was born in January of '82. In April, May of '82, I'm 4 or 5 months old. My parents have me in the turn 3 bleachers and the grandstand at Fairbury. So sort of like Central PA, right? Central Illinois has got that like heavy history of motorsports. So when you grow up where I did, there was no choice really.
So I obviously exposed to it at a very young age.
Yeah.
What was your schooling like? I mean, like I said, you've been in TV and newspapers, which we'll get to in a moment. Did you go to school for journalism? Where did you go? What was that like?
Yeah, graduated Rigsby High School, went to Illinois State University, which is here in Bloomington Normal, Illinois. It's a growing university, over 23,000 kids here now. But yeah, I think it was communication/journalism. I'd have to look at my diploma, but I think that's what it was. In essence, journalism, right? A journalism/communications degree. Graduated to college in 2004. And I know you mentioned newspaper. While I was in college, every internship and everything I could do at WJBC, the local AM affiliate, the Panagraph, the local newspaper, CBS 31, the local TV affiliate in Peoria, doing all of that stuff in college while running the college TV and radio station on the sports side too. So just, and I always love newspaper. You and I are kind of romantic newspaper guys.
Yes.
So that's probably still, I have my fondest memories at a young age of spending time at the Panagraph with this unbelievable group of writers who were there while I was there too. It was incredible. And I look back on it very fondly.
So you get out of school.
Yeah.
Do you go into television right away?
Yeah, TV was always the dream, and TV was always what I wanted to do. So like every young journalist, you take a job wherever you can get it, right?
Yeah.
So in 2004, I took the summer off because I just worked nonstop for 4 years during college. I took the summer off, and then in late August, early September, my first television job was in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, which is way northern Wisconsin, basically the UP, the Upper Peninsula in Michigan. Was in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, and I worked there for about a year, covered it was fun. I mean, the fun thing about local TV at that age is everyone's coming from somewhere else. You're all the same age. You're all making no money. You think you're living your best life. And in a lot of ways you are. So there was people from Portland, Oregon and Kissimmee, Florida and Illinois, all of us in this little tiny town of Rhinelander, Wisconsin. And that was my first TV job for about 9 months. And then I went on to Madison, Wisconsin, the NBC affiliate, NBC 15 for a couple of years.
How tough was that? You're a Chicago Bears guy, and
Awful. Awful.
you and I go back and forth a little on Twitter. Johnny Gibson and I go back and forth
Yeah.
on Twitter a little
Yeah.
bit, but man, you're in cheesehead country at that point.
Terrible. They were kind of bad then was the only good thing. It was like the waning. I covered like 37 Brett Favre, will he, won't he stay years while I was up there. It felt like it was tough. And I will say the Wisconsin people, there's such a thing as Midwestern nice. And I think a lot of Illinois
Yes.
people have it. Wisconsin people particularly have it. And I loved the people in Wisconsin, but man, did we fight about football. Man, we fought about football. And what can I say? I mean, in 1992, Favre arrives. The Packers have kicked the Bears' ass for like 30 years. It's not like I've got a lot to say. They're right, but we still fought about football all the time.
I think your time's coming.
Please, Jeremy, please.
It's coming. Trust
Caleb,
me.
I loved Justin. I loved him, but I'm ready for Caleb. I love Caleb too, so I'm ready for Caleb also.
Yeah, I don't understand your love for Justin Fields, but that's probably one of the things we disagree on. But
awesome human being, supreme athlete, great team. All those things are good. I think it was time for Caleb. So
no, it's definitely time for Caleb. So that being said, when did the dirt on dirt idea come? How did that morph in your head? Not even before you implemented it, it had to come to you in your head. What led to that?
So I was always at a young age, I had met, I'm a journalism nerd, right? At a young age, I'm the kid with a notebook in the stands, taking notes all the time at Fairbury. And my family, we didn't have any money really, but we traveled a lot to dirt tracks. That's what we did. We went to Florence or Dixie or West Virginia Motor or Eldora or West Plains or Cedar Lake. My family really exposed me to a lot of national dirt late model tracks. And so when I was doing that, I got to meet Todd Turner, who to me is, all due respect, present company included, the greatest dirt track journalist of all time is Todd Turner to me. I love him to death. And I met Todd at a young age, and him and I would always stay in touch. When I was 15 years old, I started writing for National Dirt Digest, which was an unbelievable late model newspaper. I mean, just phenomenal. When I look back at some of those old NDDs, they were incredible. And Todd and Tim Lee and those guys that spearheaded all that, Brian, they were unbelievable. So I met Todd at a young age, and Todd and I would always stay in touch, and he kind of knew I was going the digital media route. He was in the print media route. And when I got done with kind of my senior year of college, I remember attending the World 100, and, roughly just call it 20,000 people. There's 20,000 people at the World 100, and there's a biweekly newspaper there, and that's it. And it was an unbelievable biweekly newspaper, but it felt like there's no TV, there's no live anything, there's no radio, there's no nothing for 20,000 people. So clearly there's something here. And I just remember talking to Todd in the infield in 2004. I'm 22 years old and thinking like, this internet thing is really coming on. It's funny for the young people to listen to, but there was a time when the internet was really up and coming. And I was just thinking to myself, we could kind of see like the way the internet was going to go, and the fact that newspapers might get phased out a little bit. Is there a way to create a digital media? And I was an ESPN nut, an ESPN.com to cover dirt late model racing, instantaneous news, instantaneous results, inevitably live streaming that we would want to do one day, live audio, pictures, sort of like when the Super Bowl's over and you go to ESPN.com to break it all down. That's what we wanted Dirt on Dirt to be. So my senior year of college in 04 is when we started talking about it, picked up a little bit in 05. By the time 2006 rolled around, it was like, I really would like to do this. Todd and I staying in touch every step of the way. In early 2007, I convinced my then girlfriend, Amber, my wife now 15 years, who was a marketing director and an on-air DJ, that would you want to do this with us? Like, we need marketing help. And she was all in immediately. She's like, done. Let's done. So we both quit our jobs in April of 2007. Moved in with her parents, took out a $75,000 business loan, pushed every chip we had into the center of the table, hired Todd as our first employee, and the rest is history. We started in 2007. From that idea in 2004 to finally implementing in 2007, that's how it all began.
Now, Dirt on Dirt, and because I remember calling you when I was going to start Sprint Car Unlimited, and because I'm, late to the party all the time, and a lot, 10 years later, in fact.
Sorry.
But it wasn't a financial windfall for you out of the gate. What led to, now I know what the story I've heard is
Oh, go ahead.
about Golden Isle, Bloomquist, and something that happened down there. How long did it take you to build it to where it was like, okay, we really got something here? And was there a lean year or maybe two?
Yeah, so we launched, we did a pre-tour from like August and through Labor Day weekend. Like we were going to tracks, Topless 100, Jackson 100, and like Amber was setting the tent up and saying, "Hey, coming in September is this thing. We're gonna have dirt late model news." We launched September 4th, 2007. From there until not that long, that first January, February, it was like, man, is this going to work or not? Right. And keep in mind, there wasn't year round racing then, 2007, right? The season really ended in mid-October. So we're covering PR. I'm trying to make a big deal out of the banquets at PRI and all that stuff. We go to Golden Isle. So we caught a couple lucky breaks in January of 2007 or 2008, excuse me, because we started in 2007. Golden Isles decides they're going to have 10 races, 10 nights, 10,000 to win, like 10 nights in a row. Well, that was unprecedented at the time, right? So every major heavy hitter in dirt late model racing, Bloomquist, Moyer, Eckert, France, they're all there, 50, 60 cars, 10 nights in a row. Scott, of course, in classic Bloomquist fashion, there's always some sort of like controversy around Scott. Scott has some tire controversy. We were the only ones there. Like, and when I tell like the crowds were lean too, these were 400. So you can't blame streaming. This was pre-streaming. We weren't streaming live events. 300 or 400 people in the crowd on a Tuesday night. Bloomquist and Moyer and Eckert and Francis are all racing each other. Scott's got a tire controversy. Well, no one is there to document it but us. So back then you got a 10-day free trial to Dirt on Dirt. So we didn't really know how many subscribers we had until 10 days later. And we have a far better system now. It was archaic at the time when that money rolled in. So I'll never forget after like day 3 or 4 of Golden Isles plus 10 days, we were arriving at East Bay to begin covering East Bay. And I wake up and look at the PayPal account in the morning, like, whoa, like a lot of people subscribed 10 days ago to Todd had an in-depth story. I had an on-camera interview with him, right? It was just, we were just boots on the ground, hustling our ass off, you know? And that was when I kind of realized like, okay, we can at least make a living. That first 5 months was like, oh God, what a mistake. Then it was like, all right, we're going to be okay. We're going to make a living. And then that Speed Weeks, it just escalated and really ramped up. And we kind of became a household name within the first 9 to 10 months. We were not making a ton of money the first couple of years, but we were at least making what we were making in television and radio. By 2010, 2009, when we first started, I think it was 9 or 10, we streamed our first race. That's when it really went into another stratosphere, is when we started the live streaming and started to expand the staff, more news, more results, more highlights, more everything.
You were way ahead of the game. And you deserve a lot of credit for that. You were way ahead of the game as far as the internet, way ahead of the game as far as streaming and whatnot, just deciding to do it. Did that come from schooling, or are you tweaked a little bit? Because I always say, if you're a journalist, you got to be a little off.
Oh, I'm off. Don't worry. I am a little off.
But you do, because it's weird hours. Think you're always thinking different ways. And what was it, do you think, that put that idea in your head? Because obviously it's turned out pretty well.
Yeah, it has. And I'm so proud of what we've built, Amber and I and Todd there in the beginning. And, I always go to speak at local colleges or local universities or my high school about, how did you make it work? It's Entrepreneur Day. Here's Michael Rigsby, et cetera, et cetera. He sold his company. The 2 words I always use, which is a little different than what you're asking me, but it's just be relentless. Jeremy, I don't have to tell you this. The amount of hours in the car, the amount of hours editing video. I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of hours of me selling all the advertising, helping Amber do all the marketing, editing all the video. I was shooting the video for the first 3 years. I shot every piece of video on the website. There's a point where you're either going to quit or you're not. And we chose not to quit many times. But I do think we were on to something early. I think we were sort of the first ones. And I'm not saying we were the first, but certainly at the forefront of realizing that dirt late model people will be interested in this if you deliver it to them in a more instantaneous way. And Mark Richards always jokes with me all the time. He goes, man, people knew Scott Bloomquist was a little eccentric and a little interesting. He goes, but Michael, you gave him a microphone, right? And it's not like there was never television, but we were the instantaneous media with Scott from 2007 on, and with Steve Francis and Rick Eckert and Billy Moyer. And we were on the road documenting and telling these stories. And it was all the hunch that enough people care about this to care about this. That was what I always believed. And I loved it. Like, I always joke dirt late model racing is like my fourth or fifth or sixth favorite sport. And people get mad when I say that, but I love Duke basketball. I love Bears, Cubs, Bulls, Blackhawks. I'm a Chicago sports fan. Like, but I knew that this is really interesting. And I want these people to love it as much as I do. And we can get that information to them instantaneously. I think they will. And I think that's been proven to be correct since 2007. We flushed that out to be correct now and at FloSports as well.
No, and I would agree. I'm the same way. People ask me, "Oh, yeah, racing." No, I covered college and high school wrestling. Love it. The NFL, I've covered that. Love that. But it's up there. Sprint car racing's up there.
Yeah.
Streaming. You guys get into streaming. How difficult was that process so early on in the game as well? Because it's 2010. It's not like it is now.
Right. Yeah, and I go back and watch every once in a while the first broadcast that we did. It's a hilarious comedy of errors, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
don't do that.
It's a good reminder of how far we've come sometimes when we're upset with when a broadcast doesn't go well. It was tough, and that was not my super area of expertise. Like, building a media company, I kind of thought I was an expert at. I mean, I had much to learn, don't get me wrong, but streaming and the mechanics of it was not something I was a super expert at. So I had to seek a lot of outside help on how to do it. And I'm really blanking if it was 2009 or 2010, our first Cedar Lake race. It's one of the two. We did the USA Nationals. It was a lot more pressure on me in that moment than in any moment in my career. And we had trouble. The feature, the stream, you were uploading on 1.5 meg connections back in the day, right? There wasn't Starlinks and all that, TVUs and bonding and all that there is now. So I just remember being hilariously freaked out that entire 3 weeks leading up to it, feeling horrific when the stream went down for a moment on Saturday night. We got it back up eventually. It was so much work. I don't think I'll ever feel that level of pressure ever again in my career, and I hope not to. I hope not to, honestly. But it was a lot, man. I needed to seek a lot of outside help because that was not my area of expertise either.
Pressure is good. I've always liked it, but then again, back to the tweet comment. But so Dirt on Dirt's hugely successful. You're cruising, as if work included, but you're cruising there.
Yeah.
FloSports comes calling, and they didn't call it once, or probably even twice. They called a lot of times, and you held off a long time. Take me through the process, if you can, of the times you said, "No, I'm not selling Dirt on Dirt." So what finally put you over the edge to say, "Okay, you got me"?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So we eventually sold in late 2019, which is impossible to believe. It's been 5 years this year, which is like, you throw COVID in there and I feel like everybody's time's a little off, right? We sell in late 2019. I think I'd have to go back and look. I think late to mid 2017 was the first time they approached me. Martin, one of the co-founders, and Pat, I believe 2017. I have to verify that. And they didn't really have enough of and by the way, they do now, and I can wax poetically about Flow now, but they didn't really understand what short track racing was enough for me in 2017. And that's no knock on them, right? They were building a successful media company. And I say it about our current CEO, Mark Floriani, all the time. What a brilliant people think I had forethought. Like, Mark really has forethought on what it takes to build a media company and be a streaming success. And I have so much respect and admiration for Mark. But in 2017, they didn't quite get that yet. And we were still growing, right? And we were not done growing. And our revenues were still increasing and increasing and increasing. And it just, combination of them not quite understanding what the vision long-term was for them and us still growing. We weren't ready in 2017. They came back in early 18, closer, but no. Came back in late 18, closer yet, but no. And then once early 19 started to roll around, their wrestling vertical was really hitting its stride. Yep. And it was obvious that Mark Floriani, who I'd met with a few times and I'd flown to Austin in late 18 around Thanksgiving, was like, oh, they kind of our visions are starting to line up about what this could become. So we spent most of 2019 negotiating. You know how it is, Jeremy, sliding the paper back and forth 1,000 times. Yes, no, yes, no, I have to have this. We have to have that. And finally, Mark Floriani, again, who I have so much respect for, came here in May or June of 2019 and my kitchen table, which is directly above me, sat down at my kitchen table, and him and he always gets mad at me because I don't have enough whiteboards. Mark is the king of whiteboards and he wants to write on them. It's because his brain is working faster than mine even all the time. We whiteboarded out like the 25 key things that a merger would look like and an acquisition would look like. And when that meeting was over, it was like, oh, this is gonna work. It's gonna work and it can work. And listen, I'm not going to pretend the offer was incredible, right? I'm not going to pretend that it wasn't. And with that, though, money's one thing. I wouldn't have done it if I didn't think we could elevate Flo to what it has become today and change. I think change short track racing, which I think we've done. So it took some convincing, but their visions finally aligned with my visions. The number was right. The people were right. The resources we were going to get were right. And in late 2019, we finally signed the piece of paper.
You also, unlike, look, in the real world, what I like to call the real world of business, outside of racing, you took care of your employees.
Yeah.
That was a big deal. It was important to bring all the people who made Dirt on Dirt what it was and what it is along with you.
Yeah. Virtually all of them are still here, which is great. And listen, Dirt on Dirt's not perfect now when you have to invest so much time. You have to think about it. We had, I think, 13 full. My memory's bad today, Jeremy.
13, 14. Wasn't it 14?
13, 14 full-time employees, plus another 10 to 12 people who are working on the site 25 hours a week. In essence, there was 30 employees, right? Working on the website, including me 24 hours a day. Dirt on Dirt is still in the very capable and amazing hands of Todd Turner and Kevin Kovac, and it's great. It will never be what it was at its apex when there's 25 people devoting 24 hours a day to it. We have some plans for that, though. We're working on some ideas of how to integrate things a little better and a little more. We won't slow down at Flo. That's the problem. Chili Bowl, High Limit, Lucas Oil, we need to slow down so we don't have the time to do that. But people are everything, man. You win with people. You win with people. And all of those people are virtually here still. And you don't win without those people. And I am more loyal to them than I am anything else, always.
What the hell's your title at Flo? I mean, because you and I talked many times, and it's like,
yeah,
and to the outside world, they think you're in charge of Flo.
All of Flo, which thank God I am not.
No, that's a heavy undertaking.
Poor Mark Floriani. I say it all the time. He's a hell of a CEO. It's a terrible job. Terrible job.
So has it changed in the 5 years that you've done this? Take me through what your job was at the beginning and what it is now. My
title now is General Manager of Flo Racing. So basically overseeing the direction, just like a general manager for a football team would, overseeing all, in essence, the direction of the vertical. And by vertical, I mean, wrestling is a vertical, gymnastics is a vertical, motorsports is the vertical, the number one vertical at Flo, which I always like to say. My title is General Manager. Sold the company in 2019. For the first 5 months, it was handle the DoD transition, right? Make sure that's okay. Just do that. From January of 2020, and obviously COVID's coming shortly after, Mark comes to me in January of 2020 and says, hey, it's clear your relationships are part of the reason that you're so valuable. So I want to move you to rights acquisition. I basically want you to not head up motorsports rights acquisition, but you come to me and tell me, what do we need to put on Flo and go get those deals done, right? So from January of 2020 through COVID into mid 2021, even late 2021, it's just rights acquisition. Go get me the Chili Bowl. Go get me Eldora. Go get the All-Stars. Start the Lucas Oil relationship. That's what I was doing, was putting rights on the website. And then shortly after that, in mid 22, kind of transitioning into 23 until now, it's basically general manager. Where do we need to improve in racing? Where do we need to get better? How, whether that's production needs to be better. And a lot of times it does. I'll spend a lot of times on that. You know what? American Flat Track, I think we can get it. Go get that, right? Which is on our platform now. Right. Basically overlooking things all the time, going, where do we need to get better? Where are we lacking? Where are weak spots? Just make sure the vertical is as healthy as possible is in essence what I'm doing, which takes me I would love to be doing my podcast every week. I can't do both at the same time. So that's why I'm not on air as much anymore. People complain about that, or maybe some people are happy about it. But that's why I can't do that, is because it's a very busy job. So the Flo dynamic, obviously, when you were Dirt on Dirt, when you covered outlaw events, as you know, I go through this, you're kind of the necessary evil for them because, you're going to ask tough questions, because you do have a background in which, you got to ask tough questions.
Not
Right.
everybody has that in racing. We know this. And then you go to Flo. Well, now you're part of the evil empire to World Racing Group. How has that been for you going through these different stages of your career? And let's face it, the Flow Racing is here and you have Dirt Vision here. We all know that it's, Carter and how it is it's not like you guys are all bosom buddies with everything, but what's that dynamic like now? And how challenging has that been over the years?
Well, and I probably break the mold a little bit here. Part of it because just the truth is like my relationship with World Racing Group is very good. I had keep in mind, I had many contracts with them over the years, and we still have
Correct.
agreements in place with them that allow for coverage and things like that. Where whether it's Brian Carter or Brian Dunlap, who I think the world of, who really kind of I say this and mean it. Brian Dunlap built Dirt Vision into what it is today. He's the brainchild behind the creation. They have a lot of help now, and he has a lot of people helping him, but that was BD's vision back in the day, right? He's the one that brought it to fruition. Those people are all really good friends of mine. Chris Dolak, Christina, all of them.
Yeah.
I know Dolak, I would lay on the ground for and get hit by a bus for Dolak, right?
How can you not love
right,
Dolak?
right.
Yeah,
I think the world, Steve Francis, the late model series director, I think the world of these people. But yeah, challenging in the fact that we are professional competitors. But I also think, and I'm just being candid again, professional competitors who I think are both thriving, who I think are both doing incredibly well, and professional competitors who I really believe this, Jeremy, in the long haul are probably not going to harm each other much. So for me personally, it's been important for me to, and also keep in mind, I'm part of the ownership group at Fairbury Speedway.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, Fairbury Speedway's biggest event is a World of Outlaws late model event. Great, right? It has been. The Outlaws helped us make that event big. Super happy with that, right? So for me personally, I get this question a lot like, oh man, what's it like for you? And I'm like, I get along with them great. I really get along with them great. Do I think there's been professional challenges? Yes. Do I think we will work through those professional challenges? Yes. And honestly, the public perception of the angst between the two organizations is far greater from my seat than the actual angst between the two organizations. Once the race season gets going, Jeremy, you don't got time to be worried about beef with other series. You are working. And I think part of it for me is as a late model fan, I'm like, two series. There's been 37 series in late model racing. There's 4 national series, and that's forever. So I'm kind of like, what is the big deal about? I'm like Seinfeld. What's the deal? What is the big deal with this? Right. And it to me is just it's not that big of an issue.
Well, and you're right. It is more of a public perception, and it's not getting any less with High Limit coming around because, and obviously I've had discussions with Carter on this, and I've had discussions with Brad, Kyle. You guys are probably the only ones I haven't had discussions with about it. And there is some angst there. There is some tension there. And I think it's just because the World of Outlaws have always been the one series. The All-Stars knew their place in as a regional, almost like a feeder, whereas High Limit's not a feeder, not anymore.
Yeah, and it's I use the term inevitable, and I'm there may be some of my World Racing Group friends who disagree with me, but like you have this guy Kyle Larson, who's a motorsports phenomena, who is always sort of, and you ask him like he kind of thought about the idea of having a series at some point one day. Could he do this? Brad Sweet, who's accomplished everything there is to accomplish in World of Outlaws, and I think in general just maybe he wasn't happy about some of the restrictions that were placed on him. And I'm saying that if I'm baking a cake, these are all the ingredients that are going in the cake, right? Kyle's a motorsports phenomena. They can use his celebrity. He's always sort of thought about having a series. Brad has accomplished everything over here and isn't totally happy with everything you throw all of those things in there, plus streaming, which changes things, the streaming aspect, which allows for investment into a series. Same thing Dirt Vision does, right? Help use the streaming apparatus to help fund the series, which they should. That's smart business. You throw all of those ingredients into the cake, and it was inevitable. And I know for a fact, as I'm sure you do, these guys weren't the first people that thought about in the last 3 years starting a competing tour of the World of Outlaws. It just so happened it was the defending World of Outlaw champion ×5, Kyle Larson, maybe the best motorsports talent in America in 25 years. It just so happened it was those guys. So you throw all those things together, and this was going to happen at some point.
More to the flow side of things for you. When you guys have a bad show or a bad broadcast,
what's
that like for you?
Sucks.
Because I know what it's like for me. because we had an issue at BAPS the one day, and
Yeah.
man, it sucks because you're getting it from the public, you're getting it on social media.
Sucks.
I
It
mean,
in motorsports enough, I use the F word too much, so I will refrain from using the F word here, but it sucks. It sucks. And we have a quality assurance channel. I am the most active person, or at least one of the most active people in our quality assurance channel. It all, high limit at 81 speedway. And then what's going on? What's the bit rate? Da, 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 da. It's hard. It's hard to do this. It's hard. It is hard to do this. It is hard to put these trailers on the road, keep them functioning properly, make sure the employees are happy, make sure all the camera equipment's in good. It is hard to do. And when it goes wrong, I wear it, man. I wear it and I hate it. And I still spend hours stewing over it. So I hope there's at least one human being out there who sees this and goes, I feel like 1% sorry for him. And I will not tweet at him when the Lucas Oil broadcast from Portsmouth goes down, because he already knows, he already hates it, and he's doing everything he can in the world to fix it. Trust me, I hate it, and I wear it on my sleeve, Jeremy, when it happens.
it sucks. And because I produce some shows now, and which I'd rather be out in the pit area, but bodies we're
Sure.
relatively new. But man, it could be something as just a cord goes bad, and you don't know that.
A little end on a cable this big that's 12 cents is gone, and it ruins everything, right? Yeah. It sucks. To answer your question, it sucks. I still care a ton about it. I hate it in production. I still spend most of my time on production because marketing content, no offense to our marketing and content directors, who cares if the product sucks, right? There's nothing to market if the production sucks. So What matters other than that? We got a ways to go. We're about to implement some really cool new stuff that I'm excited about in the next 2 to 3 months and into 25. Very excited about. Got to keep reinventing ourselves, and we need to do that, I think, right now.
Well, one of the things as a sprint car fan, now I'm not picking on you, but
sure, please.
Your Flow Night in America is sensational.
Thank you.
High Limit's not. And the challenge for you to, like, if I watch a Flow Night in America and I watch High Limit, now granted it's new, I get it. What are the challenges for you to get that on the level of a Flow Night in America?
Staff, personnel, time, all that stuff. Right? It's just
in a nutshell.
Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? For me, okay, listen, I'm a dirt late model super fan who's been on the air doing productions and broadcasts for 15 years, who has a studio in his house. Pretty easy to flip that switch for Flow Racing Night in America, right? I love sprint car racing. I know a lot about it, but I don't know as much as Jeremy Elliott. I don't know as much as Brad Sweet. And the point I'm making is, I'm not the perfect host. There's other people that can host Castrol Flow Racing Night in America, but my combination of has studio, really knowledgeable about late model racing, can walk to his basement and do it, did all these things, it makes for an easy transition to throw me on air and be a host, right? We don't quite have that yet in sprint car racing. Do I think I have an idea of who that host could be? Yeah. Do I think there's a spot we could do it? Yeah. Do we want to start implementing some of those things? Absolutely. We've not done it yet. We picked the lowest hanging fruit first. I was the rotting, low-hanging fruit, and we picked me first, Jeremy, and threw me in for Castrol. But I would say look soon for those other things to start developing.
Well, no, and it's like, look, I understand the intricacies of putting on a show, obviously doing it and all the stuff it takes. But for Joe Fan, I've heard that, especially in central Pennsylvania, which whether it's the biggest area, it's the most passionate area, and it's the most significant area in sprint car racing. It doesn't mean I think they have the best drivers in the world, which I'll get killed for, but it's still something that I hear a lot.
Yeah.
And of course, High Limit, again, in the court of public opinion, is this invader, is trying to take the World of Outlaws steam. So it just adds another layer to people being able to complain. And that's tough, not only for you and for Brad, Kyle, and everybody involved.
It is. And I would say that it was important to get the series started. It was important to get the mechanics of a series down from a Mike Hess working with and Brad working with their employees. Can you go out and do it? And they've had several great crowds. They've had several good events. Corey Day is a budding superstar. I don't need to tell you that, right? I mean, he's the next phenom in motorsports. His win at Hickory, I'm like, oh, he won in Hickory on Flow this past week in an asphalt race. To me, those were the most important things in year one, is the mechanics of all that. Can you do it? All of that. Sort of like I said about content marketing, who gives a shit if you can't do this stuff? They are proving they can do that. I would look very much for a lot of what you're asking for and talking about sooner than later. not to give away too much or say too much, but I would say that much of what you are yearning for and the public is yearning for, we've checked a few boxes. Now let's go check those boxes, and we're going to very soon.
Well, as I tell people, it's a growth. I mean, it's not going to happen. I think your schedule for High Limit's going to look a lot different in 2025.
I think you could be right about that. I wish late model racing, they give me so much schedule control. I don't get any sprint car schedule control, and I'm yearning for it, but Brad is not giving me any of that yet. So Rick Swally calls me and says, "What do you think?" I don't get anything in sprint car racing.
So I was sitting on my couch one day during college basketball season.
Sure.
And this is outside of racing.
Mm-hmm.
And because of who you are, obviously it circulates. And I got a picture of you sitting in the stands at an Illinois State basketball game, big circle around your head. And it said about racial slurs thrown at players on the court. And now I've known you, I talked to you in 2017. So I've known you a little bit, and I was like, and then I kept getting it and getting it and getting it. So I have to ask you, you were with a group of people, and you have since been cleared of any wrongdoing in that incident.
That's correct.
Take me through that, and what was that whole situation like, and how did it get resolved?
Yeah, it's certainly a reminder and a lesson in the power of social media and what can and what can happen there. Listen, I don't want to say too much about it, but I'm happy. I have no problem talking about it with you and discussing it now. As you said, the university, Illinois State University, who I'm a proud alum of, a supporter of their basketball program, have courtside seats that I don't get to use very often because I'm on the road constantly in motorsports events in the winter. Illinois State University did do an investigation after the matter. They took it very seriously, as they should, and I'm glad they did the investigation. There was a large group of us sitting courtside at the game. It was alleged that a racial slur was used. Illinois State University, and I can unequivocally tell you that no one in my group, certainly not me, or no one within earshot or around me used a racial slur. Unequivocally, hand on heart, can tell you that without question. I wanted the university to take it seriously, and they did. They should. Matters like this are very serious. And I wanted them to dive in all the way and investigate it. Illinois State University did a very thorough investigation, released a statement in late January, I think. I think it was mid to late January because I was at Speed Weeks. They interviewed over 47 people from those sitting around our large group to the scorers, to the players on the floor, to the officials. All 47 came back and said the same thing, that there was no evidence of this happening. There was no evidence whatsoever that this took place. And listen, I'm not mad about it. I'm not upset about it. I certainly believe my group of friends and I were being painted in a very unfair light to something that did not happen. But that's the lesson I learned, Jeremy, in social media in 2024. And I'm a cockeyed optimist. I'm a person who always looks to the best in human nature and always looks to the best of people. And yeah, the social media stuff was, Jeremy, you weren't the only one getting it, right? Every time someone was like circling me or my group of friends or my friend who was sitting next to me, who is an unbelievable person and human being in town, who trains many African-American athletes, right? And had to answer a lot of questions locally, all of which he has support from those folks. Whether it was him or me or our other friends, our group of 7 or 8 of us and everybody that was there, all got the same things you were getting, right? And I think all of them said, man, Michael, I've known you 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I know you wouldn't do this. I just want to let you know that I have your support. So that meant a lot to me. And you saying that at the beginning meant a lot to me. It was not a fun time. I can tell you that. I believe in the end, the university handled it the right way. I completely supported the university's investigation. I met with the investigator. They looked at all the tape, listened to all the audio. They did everything, right? Lip readers, they did everything, So in the end, I'm glad that the university, like you said, hey, we found zero evidence of this taking place. I don't mind being asked about it. It's just one of those things where if you know me, you know that I or my friends would not do it. And, come to me and ask me rather than sending Jeremy Ellett a text message with my face circled or my friend's face circled or whatever. I am an open book. People have my phone number, my email address. I'm happy to address it if anybody wanted to ask me about it.
Yeah, I get a lot of texts. As you do as well.
Yeah.
So you were recently on Kenny Wallace's podcast. drivers, NASCAR, the whole deal.
Mhm.
And you said, and I'm not disagreeing with you,
Please, you can. You're
but I
welcome to.
am. I was getting
Sure.
So I know you said you think people, dirt track fans don't like NASCAR
That's
because,
not exactly what I
well,
said.
no, but you said that they strayed away from it.
Yeah, there was a distancing.
Yeah,
Yes, I believe that
distancing.
happened. Yes, yes.
So because of, half the field, they're elite, they're the best. The other half of the field, it's like,
Right.
here's my problem with that statement. And I
Sure.
get into this with Chaz, which we all know Chaz, because he's pushing we have the best drivers in the world in dirt track racing.
Sure.
I'm not saying we do or don't. I'm saying it's not like football, basketball, hockey, where the fields are the same. Football field's 100 yards.
Mhm.
Basketball court, the net's a certain, height from the
Sure.
floor. It's racing. That's not the case. Dirt track and asphalt are very different. Of course, Kyle Busch isn't going to have the success of, say, a David Gravel
Sure.
on dirt. And I'm going to make the statement that I'll use your guy Bobby Pierce and David Gravel will not have the success of Kyle Busch on asphalt. That's just kind of where I'm at with it. What say you on that?
I think I hear what you're saying. The core tenet of my argument was this: when you watch, why I think NASCAR, it's a truly unique situation where it's the only American professional sport that exists like
Yes.
this. And I'm going to fill the blank in now what this means. When you watch the NFL, without question, these are the best football players in the world. Major League Baseball, NBA, that all unequivocally is true. We know that. We know that an NFL scout will fly to the edges of the earth to find someone that he thinks could give their team an edge on a Sunday. College scouts the same way, but really in the NFL, right? Like he will fly to Fairbanks, Alaska, to the South Pacific, to wherever it is in the world,
Wherever,
to uncover an athlete or a player that he thinks can play on Sundays. I don't believe that. So we know without question, these are the best players. We don't know that in NASCAR. And the reason I say that is we know family connections. We know financial connections. We know it's just, to be fair, it's a wildly expensive to field a NASCAR team. So I understand why that happens. It's more of a bummer to me. It's a bummer to watch NASCAR go like, I don't know that about Bobby Pierce and David Gravel. I think I'm not going to pick a driver, but I think they could be as good as XYZ driver. Simply we'll never know because they did not have the financial resources to put them in that position that driver brought to the table. Doesn't happen in football, basketball, hockey, any of that. Only American professional motorsports does it happen. And it's like, what do you want to do about it? I don't know. I don't have a solution. I just know that part bums me out. I don't love that. And I wish we could solve it. That's what I don't know.
And I will concede that. I will concede. I do push back when people say, oh, and obviously getting to NASCAR is a way bigger expense, but
sure.
I go to Lincoln, I go to Port Royal. Nobody's poor in that pit area. Okay. Cause I know what I make and I know where I live, and there's nobody poor in the pit area at a big time super late model race or a sprint car race. So really that's a trickle down effect. It's the same in this sport.
Sure, you just say motorsports, maybe.
Yeah,
right?
all the way across the board.
But I think you're judging if and there's where Chaz, I think, hits on the right thread. Is we have deemed it the highest level of American motorsport, and if it's all kind of in the same boat, is it? Probably sure it is. Right? You can't argue with the TV ratings, yada yada yada. But I think the point when you try to compare it to the other American professional motorsports, it's lacking seriously in that area. And I don't think there's a fix for it, Jeremy. That's the problem. I think it's probably just the way it's going to be. And we kind of have to accept that. And I'm allowed to be bummed out about it and still like NASCAR and love dirt track racing. All of those things can be true simultaneously.
No, so, and I think I want to know. Look, I want to know if David Gravel could win a NASCAR race. Sure. Yeah. And despite what people may think, I do follow super late model racing. I think it's very interesting because now sprint car racing is trying to move in that direction. And I feel High Limit and the World of Outlaws can coexist. I've said this since the beginning. I think it's like a Flow Dirt Vision thing. But no, I'm with you. I'd like to know. I just accept that we're
Yeah.
never going to know.
Yeah. And I think I've moved. What are the 5 stages of grief or 12? How many stages of grief there are? I'm in acceptance now. I've slid into acceptance now. So
Do you think, what's the next step? Okay, you're a TV guy, so you know all about the ratings, you know how that all works. And we're in this streaming phase. I've always said that we're, as a sport, 10 years behind real world. What's the next step for dirt track racing and sprint car racing specifically to kind of bring it up to speed? What's the next big thing that maybe we can expect?
When you say bring it up to speed, can you be more, like, a legit question, be more specific? What do you mean?
Like, bring it up to speed is getting it to the masses, or making it more popular, or if we can even do that, because there are challenges. But, look, we didn't used to have streaming. Now we have streaming. What's the next big thing in dirt track racing or sprint car racing that's an additive that maybe is going to make it more popular and give it another boost?
I think the way that it's presented is something that I'm focused on a lot. I think we all fall into the trap of, me included. I'm a racetrack owner. I help with, all this, to do all the stuff on Flow. The way we've all sort of assumed and fallen into the trap of, got to be hot laps, got to be qualifying, got to be heat races, got to be B mains, got to be, like, we just do it. And by the way, it's worked forever, so you don't want to totally break what's working. But I think a lot about, how do we present this differently? And I don't want a sprint car fan to hear this and go, he's going to qualify and line him up for the feature. We're not doing that, right? It's just calm down. We're not doing the old Southern All-Stars late model format. But I do think, Jeremy, like, is there a way to present this differently? Is there a way to inject something new into this, something unique into this? Can you get done at 8:30 every night? Is there, like all of those ways that it's being presented and consumed? Baseball found that out with a pitch clock, right? Ratings are up 12%.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Ratings are up 12%, right? And I think, like, we need to think that way. We've been presenting it the same way, in essence, for 50 years. We need to look differently at how it looks, right? And I think even if it didn't attract new fans, it would reinvigorate current fans. And that is where I'm spending a lot of time thinking this spring and summer is about the presentation of short track racing. I'm particularly spending a lot of time on high limit, thinking about how do you present it differently. So I hope, again, nobody freak out. We're still doing the main stuff, but there are a lot of things that we can change, in my opinion.
I'm a big proponent of change, just because I understand. And again, it's from seeing other sports. I think you probably the same way.
Yeah.
Things evolve, and you either evolve with it or you die. That's right. Just how it is. And I think the biggest challenge with anything like that is the fan base. It's very old. It's very set in its ways. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here. That's the way it is. And in central Pennsylvania, it's even worse.
Yeah.
How do you overcome that? Because I don't think from a technical problem and putting things in place, I don't think that's the issue. I think it's getting people to buy into it.
Yeah. I think you have to give them things that they like, right? And I think a lot of times, like, we so the Wild West Shootout, an event that I am co-owner of, that is, kind of commands the January late model calendar in early January. We hot lap qualify together. It's the only major dirt late model event on the planet where you only see the cars one time before the heat race, right? And our fans love it. They love it, right? And it's a subtle change. Listen, I know how sprint car people feel about single car qualifying. Do I think I could get hot lap qualifying together? Probably not. But I think, take late model racing, for instance. I would love to move to a world in late model racing. I don't like bringing all the cars out for hot laps, taking them back, bringing them all out for qualifying, taking them back. Now, not like qualifying doesn't matter. Of course it does. But in a lot of ways, I think fans will tell you heat races kind of feel like when you get your juices flowing for the first time in the night. I have now had to see these people go out and back twice before the thing that kind of matters first. So in late model racing, take that for instance. Is there a way, I want to hot lap qualify together? You're shrinking 45 minutes out of your night immediately, right? And you're just creating less of that sort of preliminary time for race fans. And I'd like to be able to figure that out. Somewhere Shane Clanton has a voodoo doll and he's sticking it in mine right now because he hates this so much. And I love Clanton to death. I love him. But, I think we found the fans didn't even know they wanted it. And then we did it in Arizona and they're like, this is awesome. So to your point, Jeremy, I think even the oldest fans, give them things that they're going to really like, and they're going to like them, right? This isn't rocket science, in my opinion.
It's funny. Babs Motor Speedway does this for their shows.
They do sprint cars too?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Call Colton Gauss, GM at Babs Motor Speedway. It was his brainchild. They've been doing it a couple years now, and now the Grove does it for their Yellow Breeches race.
It's just it's fantastic.
It is great. I love it.
Yeah.
It just because, and some of it's, I shouldn't say this, but some of it's personal because I don't want to be up till 3 a.m. doing my stuff.
Of course. Yeah.
Because look, part of popularity is getting news out there, getting content out there. Look, the NBA is fantastic at getting stuff out right away. The NFL, fantastic getting it out, but they're done at a reasonable time.
Right.
So I'm with you. Look, I just want to see change. I want to see effort for moving forward. I like forward thinking, even if I don't maybe like something that's put in. I like the forward thinking of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what high limit is. And I think that could, when you look at that, do you think high limit is something that could kind of tilt that? And maybe it's picked up by other series or tracks.
I mean, Choose Cone was one of the first there, that kind of got them, not that tracks had never done a Choose Cone before, but high limit on a national stage is, them kind of doing it first. Yeah. I think if you're going to be a new and innovative series, try new and innovative things. Right. And like I said, I think right now, so much of what they're doing is like, you just got to get the events on the ground, get them operated, get the staff gelled together, pay the purses. Those aren't easy either, right?
No.
I'll give credit to World Racing Group. You've done it for 40 plus years. You've got a machine built, right? You know how to do those things. And credit to Brian and his team for doing that. High Limit is establishing all those things now while creating a ton of excitement with their events. And I think you'll see them in the future, in my opinion. And Brad's going to go, what are you talking about? We haven't talked about this yet. I think we will see more things like that from High Limit. They're not going to be so outside the box that it's a different product. You don't want to do that. What do people love? Exciting sprint car races. That's what they're going to be. But there's some schedule stuff that they're wanting to do that I'm like super excited about, right? Changing the way that a sprint car schedule is thought of. And I love that. So all of that, yeah. If you're going to be new and innovative, let's be new and innovative.
Well, I've achieved my goal. I got Brad. Brad's going to be calling you and getting you, and I got you in trouble. So I've reached my goal with
He's
this.
always mad at me because I don't answer the phone enough anyway. I feel like I talk to Brad like a good amount, but I know I don't talk to him enough for him. So I've got to get Brad. I've got to get better. I'm going to get better. I've got a lot going on. So
I'm sure he's sick of me calling. Hey, Jeremy, what do you? I mean, he doesn't even say hello. Yeah. It's hey, Jeremy, what do you? I got a question.
Yeah.
So, Michael, I want to thank you. I know you're busy for taking time out of your day to be on the deep dive. This is what I wanted to do. I had it penciled in, and again, I'm glad you were able to come on.
No, I appreciate it, man. I think a lot of you, I say all the time in every flow meeting I'm in, listen, there's not a lot of great journalists. Like you're a great journalist, right? And I as someone who grew up doing that was my degree. I love that piece of it. You, Kovac, Todd Turner, Kyle, Kyle and those guys that still care about that stuff. That matters to me. So I will help you any way I can, man. You let me know. I'll help you out.
Well, I appreciate that. And again, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeremy.
That's going to wrap up this edition of the SprintCarUnlimited.com Deep Dive presented by EnTrust IT Solutions. Thank you to FloSports' Michael Rigsby. We appreciate it. A lot of good stuff there. And also, don't forget to click the subscribe button on our YouTube channel and also check out our daily exclusive content at www.sprintcarunlimited.com. We'll be back next Thursday with another edition of the SprintCarUnlimited.com Deep Dive.